It's a new level. It's a new level.
Please put your hands together as we welcome our guest.
Thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to thank you here in Sitam for having me once again. And I have come to realize that Sitam has become my home away from home. And I am back to be home again. And Elder David Tanki, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. And I must say, you were very, very honest, vulnerable, and very, very helpful. Thank you so much. And let me take this opportunity to greet our presiding bishop, Bishop Callisto Odede, and his Carita Mbangara. Thank you for having me once again. And Dr. Kimati, thank you for inviting me to be part of this conference. I am really humbled, and I hope God will meet your expectations through me for making my contributions. And all fellow speakers with me, I want to greet you in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I must say, this time around, I didn't come alone. I came with a very special friend and a brother, and his name is Andres Mohuera. May you stand, just wave. He leads a very growing church in part of South Africa called Northwest. This is where South Africa mines the platinum. And he is also a very special businessman. He's doing amazing, amazing things. If you get an opportunity, talk to him. And greetings to all those that are watching this conference in different social media platforms, and all those of you who are attending in person. I really pray that God would speak to us, and that at this time of this conference, may God just plant, even if it's one idea that will change your life and change your family and change Kenya and Africa as a whole. Thank you very much. It's amazing, as I'm saying that, some of you are seated there and you think, do you know who I am? Can I really amount to something that can change my life or my family? Let me say this. I remember one time watching, it was an old interview of a man in America by the name of Warren Buffett. I'm sure you've heard of him. An old video. And this person asked Warren Buffett, he said, Mr. Buffett, millions of people are watching us. And those that are watching us, many of them knows you to be a very rich man. And he said, I want to ask you a very special question. And he said, and I want you to listen to this. when did you know that you are going to be a rich man? You could see on the face of the person interviewing him, and those of us who were watching on this and hoping that we're going to get something very special, and listen to the response. He simply said, I always knew, and he kept quiet. When did you know, Mr. Buffett, you are going to be rich? The answer is, I always knew. If you are seated here this morning, listen, I don't know with other speakers, but as for me, I am not going to give you an answer of how to make it in the world of money. But if you have this thing in you, I am going to help to raise it. If you don't have it, how can I give it to you? Because this must be a dream in you that is laying dormant. And through presentations that we are going to be doing, we are going to raise the sleeping giant in you. And as I'm going to make my presentation, I want you inside you to find out if there is something crying in you to say, I am not made for this. You know, this is like if you take a cup and you feed it with, what do you call it? In South Africa, we say pap. What do you call it? Is it in Zimbabwe, they say salsa? Huh? Ugali. If you feed a cup ugali, yes, because the cub is desperate for food, maybe it can be tamed and compromise it. But listen to this. The day it tasted meat, something inside that lion wakes up, something that was subdued wakes up and say, I want more of this. I have been to a number of conferences, business conferences, where we are talking finances, where we're talking strategies. But most times you can see you are feeding a chicken with mealies. But I want to say to you, wherever you are seated, can you make this discovery in you to say, where you are you satisfied with what you are? Are you satisfied with what you are doing? Or at the higher heights that you want to reach? My topic for this morning, it's changing the narrative of poverty in Africa. That's the topic I'm going to deal with. And I am going to talk of three things, if you are writing. Number one, I am going to define what poverty is. Number two, how to change the narrative of poverty in Africa. Number three, what do we need to do in order to change poverty in Africa to wealth creation? And that will be the end of my presentation. Let's start with number one. What is poverty? And I want to say to you, I experience what poverty is. This is not a story that I'm telling you. I went to school To start school, I was 10 years old because I was born in the farms of South Africa. 1973. In those years, South Africa was very, very challenging country, especially as a Black person. There were privileges you were simply cut away from. And that's where I was born. Let me start by defining what poverty is by quoting a poet by the name of Mir Taqi Mir, when he said that, and I quote, "Poverty is death in a daily episode," close quote. One of the major developments in poverty studies is to follow multidimensional phenomenon. Such scholarship is echoed in Copenhagen statements that says, and I quote, "Poverty has various manifestations, including lack of income and productivity resources to ensure sustainable livelihood, hunger and malnutrition, ill health, limited or lack of access of education and other basic services, increase morbidity and mortality from illness, homelessness and inadequate housing, unsafe environments, and social discrimination and exclusion," close quotes. Based on that, we can all agree that poverty is material want, shabbiness, and squalor. Clothes patched beyond repair, clothes literally worn, shoes literally worn at heel, bedding stained and worn thin, furniture and fittings that sigh with exhaustion. Poverty is a housing without basic amenities, comforts or security that home life is exposed to afford. On the other hand, urban poverty is space so cramped that privacy is impossible, shacks that leak when it rains, sweat in summer, and freeze in winter, candles and paraffin heaters, and the fire hazards that this presents to us. Poverty is infection carried when hookworm parasites burrows into intestine of a child. It is malnutrition, not just pangs of hunger, when food is short in the home. Although poverty is a hunger too, but the long-term endemic condition caused by poor or inadequate diet. What is more said is that poverty prompts desperate measures. And can I say to us on this point, friends, it's amazing. Even Christians are forced to act in certain ways. When they are seated rightly, they ask themselves, is it me that did this? Let me tell you, it's you overwhelmed by poverty. Acute shortage can turn people into scavengers, beggars, and thieves. Being deprived of good or leisure or security means that when alcohol or other drugs are available, poor people may abuse them furiously. Poverty creates stress, and stress triggers violence. If you are really going through the channel of poverty, you can't say to me, you are not stressed. I like what Mr. Tanki said. This is not the time to downplay prayer and fasting, but this is to say, prayer and fasting belongs to the spiritual realm. We are talking of another realm here, that you need to do your preparations, that you need to do your part. Being deprived of goods or leisure or security means that when alcohol or other drugs are available, poor people may abuse them furiously. Poverty creates stress, and stress triggers violence. Poverty dismisses people, leaving them powerless to shape their lives. Poor people have less ability to make meaningful choices and to act on them. Their autonomy is pinched and compromised. They are thrust to the margins of their society, their needs ignored, and their human worth discounted. In a nutshell, I am saying poverty is a chronicle of suffering. It is a saga of survival. And point number 2, how then do we change the narrative of poverty in Africa? There is a story I like to tell whenever I deal with how to change poverty in someone's life or in your own life. And this is not just in Africa, but more so for individuals gathered here. The story has impacted my own life. And this story is behind the change of my own life. The story goes thus. Once upon a time, long ago, 2 ambitious young cousins named Pablo and Bruno lived side by side in a small village. The young and big dreamers. They would talk endlessly about how someday, some way, they would become the rich. They were both bright and hardworking. All they needed was an opportunity. One day that opportunity arrived. The village decided to hire 2 men to carry water from the nearby river to a cistern in the town square. The job went to Pablo and Bruno. Each man grabbed 2 buckets and headed to the river. By the end of the day, they had filled the town cistern to the brim. The village elder paid them 1 penny for each bucket of water. "This is our dream come true," shouted Bruno. "I can't believe our good fortune." But Pablo wasn't so. His back ached and his hands were blistered from carrying the heavy buckets. He dreaded getting up and going to work the next morning. He vowed to think of a better way of getting the water from the river to the village. I want you to get this. This is where things are starting to happen. This guy, after carrying water through buckets, he vowed inside himself. He said to himself, "I must find a better way to do what I am doing, to carry water from the river to the village. There must be another way." "Bruno, I have a plan," Pablo said the next morning as they grabbed their buckets and headed for the river. "Instead of lugging buckets back and forth for pennies a day, let's build a pipeline from the river to the village." Bruno stopped dead in his tracks. "What? A pipeline? Who ever heard of such a thing?" Bruno shouted. "We have got a great job, Pablo. I can carry 100 buckets a day. At a penny a bucket, that is $1 a day. I am rich. By the end of the week, I can buy a new pair of shoes." Wrong things. "By the end of the month, I can buy a cow. By the end of 6 months, I can build a new hut. We have the best job in town. We have weekends off and 2 weeks paid vacation every year." This is where people are trapped. "We are set for life. Get out of here with your pipeline." But Pablo was not easily discouraged. He patiently explained the pipeline plan to his best friend. Pablo would work part of the day carrying buckets and then part of the day and weekends building his pipeline. Are you getting the point here? He knew it would be hard work digging a ditch in the rocky soil because he was paid by the bucket. He knew his income would drop at first. He knew his income will drop. So he still went to dig the pipeline, purposefully dropping his income. What am I saying? If you are working 8 to 4 kind of a job, and you are not planning, you are not allowing for your income to drop purposefully, you are so sucked into building your career, the time will come where you will be exposed. He also knew it will take a year, possibly 2, before his pipeline would start to pay big dividends. But Pablo believed in his dream, and he went to work. Bruno and the rest of the villagers began mocking Pablo, calling him, "Pablo, the pipeline man. Let me tell you this. When you start doing something that will change your life, you will be nicknamed. They will give you names. Bruno, who was earning almost twice as much money as Pablo, flaunted his new purchases. He bought a donkey outfitted with a new leather saddle, which he kept parked outside his new 2-story hut. He bought flashy clothes and fancy meals at the inn. Flashy clothes. Some people think all what you do with money is to buy fancy clothes. And all what they're spending their money on is flashy clothes. They buy even new clothes to go to every wedding, even if they're not straws. The villagers called him Mr. Bruno and cheered when he bought rounds at the tavern and laughed loudly at his jokes. While Bruno lay in his hammock on the evenings and weekends, Pablo kept digging his pipeline. The first few months, Pablo didn't have much to show for his effort. The work was hard, even harder than Bruno's, because Pablo was working evening and weekends too. Listen to this. You want to change the story or the history of your family? Apply hardworking. I know young people will say, I don't want to work hard. I want to work smart. But let me announce this to young people. You will never know how to work smart until you start by working hard. This guy was working very hard, evenings and weekends. But Pablo kept reminding himself that tomorrow's dreams are built on today's sacrifices. You must write that down. Pablo is reminding himself, this is self-motivation. Yes, you need outside motivation, but you also need self-motivation. He kept on reminding himself that tomorrow's dream are built on today's sacrifices. In other words, listen, you want to live a better life tomorrow. Let me ask this question. Anyone who wants to live a better life tomorrow, can you raise your hand wherever you are seated? Listen to this. You want to live a good life tomorrow. You need to sacrifice today to live a good life tomorrow. If you refuse to sacrifice today, you're gonna pay a price tomorrow. Day by day, he dug an inch at a time. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. He chanted to himself as he swung his pickaxe into the rocky soil. Inches turned into 1 foot, then 10 feet, then 20, then 100. Listen to this. Short-term pain equals long-term gain, he reminded himself as he stumbled into his humble hut, exhausted from another day's work. He measured his success by setting and meeting his daily goals, knowing that over time, the results would far exceed his effort. Here is a statement you need to write again. Keep your eyes on the prize, he repeated over and over as he drifted off to sleep, accompanied by sounds of laughter from the village tavern. Keep your eyes on the prize, not on the pains you are going through now. I want young people to hear this. Don't allow the pains of today to stop you from reaching your goal. Pay. You know what? You are going through these pains. Ask the Tankies and others. I will tell you, behind every success, there is a story we can tell you. So you don't want to have your own story. All what you want is to go out there and show what you have, and hence you lose it within 3 months. Days turned into months. One day, Pablo realized his pipeline is halfway finished, which meant he only had to walk half as far to fill up his buckets. Pablo used the extra time to work on his pipeline. He didn't use the extra time to start watching TV until he falls asleep in front of the TV. What did he do? The extra time, he continued to dig his pipeline. Here's the question. What do you do with your extra time? You watch all the soapies. You even know all the slots of, and you're talking of one day becoming a rich person. Pablo, during his rest breaks, Pablo watched his old friend Bruno lug buckets. Bruno's shoulders were more stooped than ever. He was hinged in pain, his steps slowed by the daily grind. Bruno was angry and sullen, resenting the fact that he was doomed to carry buckets day in and day out for the rest of his life. He began spending less time in his hammock and more time in the tavern. When the tavern patrons saw Bruno coming, they whispered, "Here comes Bruno, the bucket man." You remember who they were calling him the time he was enjoying his life? Mr. Bruno. Now they are calling him the bucket man. And they will giggle when the town drunk mimicked Bruno's stooped postures and shuffle gait. Bruno didn't buy rounds or tell jokes anymore, preferring to sit alone in a dark corner surrounded by empty bottles. Finally, Pablo's big day arrived. The pipeline was complete. The villagers crowded around as the water gushed from the pipeline into the village cistern. Now that the village had a steady supply of fresh water, people from the surrounding countryside moved into the village, and it grew and prospered. Once the pipeline was completed, Pablo didn't have to carry buckets anymore. Listen to this. What are you doing when you are working? Yes, you are working. Good professional. Have all the benefits at work. You are staying in a house, but remember you still owe the house. Yes, you are driving a nice car, but don't forget you still owe the car. The furniture you have, you are still owing them. What do you actually own? The question is, what are you doing to stop you from carrying the water buckets? The water flowed, whether he worked or not. It flowed while he ate. It flowed on the weekends while he played. The more the water flowed into the village, the more the money flowed into Pablo's pockets. Pablo, the pipeline man, became known as Pablo, the miracle maker. Politicians lauded him for his vision and begged him to run for mayor. You know what? Let me tell you, this is the truth. When you start moving things and money start coming your way, people want to listen to your advices. People want to listen to your story. Pablo, they want to make him a mayor. But Pablo understood that what he had accomplished wasn't a miracle. It was merely the first stage of a big, big dream. You see, Pablo had plans that reached far beyond his village. Pablo planned to build, now I want you to hear this, Pablo planned to build pipelines all over the world. The pipeline drove Bruno, the bucket man, out of business. Who would still want to drink water from buckets when there are water coming through the pipeline? Who? You must be careful of what you are doing. That you are doing something that is going to be outdated. Be careful. And it pained Pablo to see his old friend begging for free drinks in the tavern. So Pablo arranged a meeting with Bruno. Bruno, I have come here to ask you for your help. Bruno straightened his stooped shoulders and his dark eyes narrowed to a squint. Don't mock me, Bruno. Don't mock me, Bruno hissed. I haven't come here to gloat, said Pablo. I have come here to offer you a great business opportunity. It took me more than 2 years before my first pipeline was completed. But I have learned a lot during those 2 years. I know what tools to use, where to dig, and how to lay the pipeline. I kept notes as I went along, and I have developed a system that will allow me to build another pipeline, and another, and another. I could build a pipeline a year by myself. But that would not be the best use of my time. What I plan to do is to teach you and others how to build a pipeline, and then have you teach others, and have each of them teach others, until there is a pipeline to every village in the region, then a pipeline to every village in the country, and eventually a pipeline to every village in the world. Just think, Pablo continued, we could make a small percentage of every gallon of water that goes through those pipelines. The more water that flows through the pipeline, the more money will flow into our pockets. The pipeline I built isn't the end of the dream. It is only the beginning. Bruno finally saw the big picture. I want you to hear this. There are people who catch things when it's too late. Other people only get woken up when they have to retire. They wait until they have to retire. They wait until there's no more salary coming into their accounts. He smiled and extended his calloused hand to his old friends. They shook hands and then hugged like long-lost friends. Years passed. Pablo and Bruno had long since retired. Their worldwide pipeline business was still pumping millions of dollars a year into their bank account. Sometimes, and I want you to listen to the end of this story. It's a very prophetic story. It talks of many of us. Sometimes on their trips through the countryside, Pablo and Bruno would pass young men and women carrying water buckets. Their childhood friends would pull over and tell the young men and women their story and offer to help them build their own pipelines. A few would listen and jump at the opportunity to start a pipeline business. But sadly, most bucket carriers would hastily dismiss the notion of a pipeline. Pablo and Bruno had the same excuse over and over. And these are the excuses they had. Mr. Tanki, tell me that when you go around Kenya and other countries, you haven't heard these excuses. I don't have the time. Some people get so busy. Some people get so busy on the cell phone, WhatsApping, and all what they're WhatsApping does not bring any cent. They sleep after 2 o'clock in the morning. They are WhatsApping, but nothing comes in and they're spending. So sad. You sit with these people around the table. They can't even look you on your face. They are busy WhatsApping. Listen to another excuse. My friend told me he knew of a friend of his friend who tried to build a pipeline and failed. Listen to another excuse. Only the ones who get in early makes money on pipeline. Listen, we're not here to tell you to join a pyramid scheme. We are not. We are telling you of things that we are living, things that we are doing. Another excuse, I have carried buckets all my life. I will stick to what I know. Oh, you're telling me about starting a business and doing 1, 2, 3. No. I'm qualified and I'm working, and I just want to carry on with my career. Listen, the career with your qualifications, you are not working for yourself, you are working for others. Hello? You are carrying buckets for others. Listen to this excuse. I know some people who lost money in a pipeline scam, not me. It made Pablo and Bruno said that so many people lacked vision. See, this is where I started. If you don't have this thing in you, what are we going to wake up? Make this an assignment of your life. When we knock off today, go and sit with yourself. Take a notebook and a pen and say, where do I want to see myself in the next 10 years? Where do I want to see myself? Write it down. Mr. Tanki said it very well. You said, some people say, no, I don't write a business plan. I've got it in my head. I know it. The more you think you know, it actually exposes that you don't know. But both men resigned themselves to the fact that they lived in a bucket-carrying world and that only a small percentage of people dared to dream pipeline dreams. I finish with this. Number 3, what do we need in order to change poverty in Africa to create wealth? The life of an entrepreneur can never be fully understood until you have personally experienced it yourself. Listen, we're telling you whatever we're telling you, but you must be already on the go. Or when we go after this conference, you don't wait for another time, you start. There is this misplaced notion that entrepreneurship means freedom. On the contrary, the journey of an entrepreneur is, ironically, one of endless struggles, the result of inordinated desire to succeed. The journey is a life of responsibilities, not only to you and your family, but to the families of the staff who work with you and to the stakeholders who are related to your business. But the question remains, what makes a millionaire? 3 things that you need. Did you hear Pablo? He had these 3 things. Number 1, a fierce competitiveness. Fierce, there was this thing burning in him that nothing could stop it. Number 2, their desire to apply what they have learned. Mr. Dank, let me tell you this. Some people are taking notes here. From your first session to the last one on Saturday, they will never act on one, but they've put it in the notes. And they hope the notes will jump out of the notebook. They will never try anything. Number 2, I said number 2, the desire to apply what they have learned. Number 3, their impossible ego. Their impossible ego. If you listen to them, they will tell you stories of endurance and innovation that have secured them a fortune. They are full of lessons, both for business and for life itself. These are rich stories. In more ways than one, they are packed with life, laughter, and love of achievement. Stories that have proved a catalyst for many lives across Africa. Let me emphasize this. Success as an entrepreneur requires no specific creed or color or connections or genetics. It is more about the following: an almost lethal ability to spot an opportunity. A lethal ability. Listen, you'll be surprised that business people, even when they're driving through a dirty place, when they see dirt, they see opportunity to make business. And you just, look how dirty is this. All these streets here are so dirty. The people are literally, entrepreneurship, they see opportunities out of debt. They say, make debt, and I will turn your debt into money. Number 2, to exploit this opportunity with ruthless verve and passion. Number three, it is an ability to lift yourself from being a tear-sodden heap on the ground. Number four, it is having the inner strength to dust yourself down, jump back up, and deliver a vicious left hook. What am I saying here? If you try to practice whatever you have learned, because there is desire in you, when you stumble, you are down. You don't lie there and keep on crying and crying and crying, because crying is never going to help you. What do? You rise up, dust yourself off, and you say, I'm going forward. And when you go, you are planning to unleash a left hook. In other words, you're gonna punch like you have never done it before. If you miss this one, you're gone. Let me tell you something, even if I don't finish, and I must finish here now. Listen to this. Ask this man, Pastor Andres seated here, what COVID-19 did to me. You know, I put up a huge building, a 4-story building with 65 rooms and a bathroom inside every room. In other words, 65 rooms, 65 bathrooms. And you know what I did? Because I thought, no, let me cut this one. I was doing it cash. I pumped money. On the day the university was to come and accredit my building, it was the day the university was closing because of COVID-19. Gone. I sat there day after day, week after week, month after month, no income whatsoever. Ask him. One day I woke up, I said, it's not going to help me to sit down like this. I must start doing some things here. Started phoning different people. Listen, when you fall down in business, don't sit and cry. If you cry standing up, you cry dusting yourself, you cry getting yourself ready. And you know what? Inside you, you must be saying, whoever I come across will never stand. Never stand. And as I talk to you now, my building is full of students. Full of students. And it's amazing. When the building is working, contracts for training and consultancy are just coming. You know, I go from here Wednesday straight into a meeting. And I'm telling you, I'm going to make some good cash there. I'm going to make some good cash. It is to avoid distractions. It is to avoid distractions in order to achieve a sort of tunnel vision. To avoid distractions in order to achieve a tunnel vision. You know, a tunnel vision is that thing that you want. You know what? You want it. Even if people are saying, it can't, you say, I want it. Have you heard, who is this guy? I just forgot his name. He told his engineers to say, I want a 6-cylinder engine. Henry Ford. He said to his engineers in his workshop, go build me a 6-cylinder engine. It was not there. They went for more than a month, they could not get it. They went back and said, Mr. Ford, we can't grant you your wishes. They said, he stood up and he said to the engineer who came, I want it, and I will get it. And he walked out of his office into the car, gone to holiday. This senior engineer went back to other engineers and he said, Mr. Ford said he wants it. He wants it. And he told me, and he will get it. Success as an entrepreneur does not often originate from privilege or inheritance. For a start, most of entrepreneurs in Africa made money, please listen to this, made money because they did not have any money. When you have money, why do you still want money? You have it. More than a few grew up barefoot or on the street. Standing in front of you, I personally had to chase a goat from picking up a piece of bread that was thrown away by a high school student. I was rushing to the piece of bread, the goat was rushing to the same piece of bread. And if it wasn't because I was a human being, the goat would have picked it up. I'm telling you of myself. That situation, my mom passed on. Every time I tell this story when she's there, if she was here, my mom will stand up and go out. I promise you, she will cry. That motivated me to say, boy, let's go and make it. Boy, you can make it. Yes, you can do it. You cannot be defined by who gave birth to you. In education, I've done myself a bit. In business, I've done myself a bit. So I'm saying to you, you can. And let me land with this. It is that burning deep desire. That burning deep desire, it's another thing to achieve wealth. Deep burning desire. And friends, I wish I could emphasize this. Nothing can stop this deep desire. Please, don't confuse me here and say, what about God? You can have God without money. Don't you know? I'm talking of you have God, you are living a holy life, but you are sick and tired of being poor. Failure and disappointment, it's another thing. Can also propel an entrepreneur from being a mediocre player into a surefire success. Surefire. Or you say surefire. In South Africa, I'll say surefire. The last statement is this. Money won't create success. The freedom to make it will. Thank you very much.
There's an overflow, abundance of favor. It's a new